Topics we're going to be covering in this short video are behavior, form and function of behavior, common functions of behavior, antecedent behavior consequences, the ABC model, developing a hypothesis, replacement behaviors, and our assignment for week 4. So Chapter 7 discusses one of my professional passions, PBIS and FBAs, Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports, and Functional Behavior Assessments. FBAs help us to try to determine the patterns of behaviors and in turn helps us make a hypothesis about the reasons behind these behaviors. So let's talk a little bit about behavior. So behavior must be observable, an action that can be seen. It must be measurable. It can be counted or timed. There's what we call a dead man's test. If a dead man can't do it, it's not behavior. So let's talk a little bit about how we describe behavior. So on the left, you see Johnny is disruptive during math class. Is this measurable or observable? Let's try that again. Johnny entered the room, threw his books onto the table, and yelled, "I don't want to do math today." That's more observable and measurable. Form and function. These are two major terms that you're going to see in the world of behavior. We've got form, the behavior used to communicate, because we know that behavior is a form of communication, okay? So for example, hitting, yelling, crying, putting his head on the table. Function is the underlying reason for the behavior. So for example, a student may have low frustration tolerance, difficulty asking for help, or an underlying skill deficit. Think of form and function as an iceberg, okay? We've got the specific behaviors up top, what you see. We've got a student maybe melting down. What does that mean? Okay, hitting a teacher, yelling, crying, putting his head on the table. Underneath, we've got these precipitating factors that you don't see. Maybe a student has low frustration tolerance, low self-esteem, difficulty managing stress, difficulty with abstract reasoning, poor problem-solving skills, or difficulty asking for help. So we've got 4 common functions of behavior. Attention. So a student may be trying to get peer, adult, group, or individual, negative or positive, nonverbal or verbal attention. Escape. Task, demand, activity, or person or environment. A student may be trying to escape those things. Tangible, something specific, an item, or a specific agenda, something they want. And sensory, tactile, olfactory, smell, taste, visual, auditory, hearing, proprioceptive, body positioning, and vestibular movement. And a lot of students with autism, their behaviors you may observe to be meeting a sensory need. So we've got this model that we call the ABC model. A standing for antecedent, what happens immediately before the behavior, also known as a trigger. And we also have consequence, what happens immediately after the behavior. Always use the target behavior as the starting point. So let's take a look at what this looks like. Johnny throws his pencil and rips his paper whenever he's given double-digit math problems. When this happens, he's sent to the office. Okay, so we know the behavior here in the middle. Johnny throws his pencil and rips his paper. What happened right before he did that? Well, he was given the multi-digit math problem. And what happened right after? Johnny's sent to the office. So from this, we can develop a hypothesis. So the hypothesis summarizes the routine, the ABC data, and hypothesizes a function of the behavior. It's a good guess of why the student is behaving in the way he is. So with this information, we can form a hypothesis statement. So it is hypothesized that Johnny throws his pencil and rips his paper in order to escape having to attempt the multi-digit math problems, perhaps due to a skill deficit. So finally, we're going to look at replacement behaviors. Students need to be taught replacement behaviors while building the skills necessary to behave appropriately. It should serve the same function. They should get the same thing out of what they were trying to do before. So for example, if a student acts out when he's given a difficult task and the teacher automatically goes over and helps the student, he's going to continue to act out later to get that help because he knows that's how he gets the attention. So when you're teaching a replacement behavior, you want to serve the same function. It should be as efficient as the behavior it is replacing. So for example, if a student acts out when he's having a hard time with a problem and a teacher immediately gives the attention, it should be that immediate when you're teaching the replacement behavior, perhaps to raise his hand. And it must be within the student's ability. So you need to know that a student is able to do this replacement behavior and can do it over time. So let's look at what a hypothesized replacement behavior could be. It's hypothesized that Johnny throws his pencil and rips his paper in order to escape having to attempt multi-digit math problems, perhaps due to a deficit. Okay, we know all the ABC data there. So here's some replacement behaviors. He could request a break, ask for help, or request a break while waiting for help. Okay. So FBAs, Functional Behavior Assessment. They do not need formal parent consent if you're only using it to inform practice. That's very important. Formal parent consent is only if you're using it as part of an IEP, So FBA and Behavior Intervention Plan can be listed as an accommodation as they may change frequently. So that's if you're writing an IEP, you can list that as an accommodation because these things are ever changing. So your assignment this week is to complete an FBA on a real or imagined student's behaviors, which may be impacting their or their peers' education. You may use the data collection methods I provided, such as the interviews, the ABC observation, or interval observations to form your hypothesis, but you do not need to submit this data, okay? You're going to be able to get to a point where you're looking at the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence, and you can do an FBA almost in your head when you know what the form and function of the behaviors are. So follow the provided template that I gave you, and you don't need to reinvent the wheel for this assignment.